plugged it all. I plugged it all the way in.
You got to get it deep.
It's true. It's true.
Oh my God, I love your is that a Tina's tiara?
Yes, I thought we could promote Tina. I got it from Maven.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
I love
tiaras.
Tina's tiaras. Oh my goodness, I feel like I should pull mine out. You got the light up one. I got really high and lost mine in the woods.
What else is new?
You would think I could find a light up tiara in the woods, but
you would think.
That's why we wear them, so we don't get lost down in the middle of the field.
Oh, is that what they're for?
That's what they're for.
You guys are so practical in your camping.
We are. You know, there's a lot of earth energy in our little group. Lots of Taurans and lots of Virgos.
All the people.
The lashes and my feathers are having a conversation.
Let's dive in, Mitzi. Welcome to AstroDivaz with Peterbilt and Stone. I'm Nikki Stone.
And I'm Missy Peterbilt, and I couldn't be more delighted to have our guest today. Lori Guth is a dear friend of mine from so many incarnations, from retail to running a yoga and Pilates studio together, and now shifting into a new invention of ourselves. We tend to parallel one another quite often. Lori is a pragmatic guide who supports people in discomfort find a way into healing and to presence. We're so delighted that you're here, Lori. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you so much, Mitzi and Nikki, for asking me to be here today. How can I say no to you two? Like, really? That's just not a possibility. There's just no way to say no to the two of you. I'm here because I love these conversations. They're juicy, they're alive. They say yes to life, no matter of the, variations and gradations that life has to offer. And I think it's so important. I know one of the things that, that's important to the three of us is community and connection. And having these conversations is part of being in community and how we help each other be seen and heard, which is very good and very nourishing for our bodies, for our minds and our spirits.
Precisely.
I'm here.
Precisely. Oh, so good. What I know about you, Lori Guth, is that you're an ever-changing, ever-evolving teacher, healer, beautifier in the world. And you specialize in the gaps between identities from my experience of you. So much of the work is really minding that gap between hitting we can get addicted to arriving, being accomplished. And the accomplishment is actually what's happening in the transitions. And my experience of you is that's what you do so beautifully, is minding those transitions.
I love how you phrase that, Mitzi. That's beautiful. And, it's a process. It's not just, here I am, I've arrived. Like you said, we're addicted to the arrival. There's a messy middle. And that is my specialty. That is what I love, because I find it really interesting. I'm very, very curious about a lot of things, as you both know. And especially you, Mitzi, we've known each other a really long time. So curiosity, and I don't take that for granted either. Something that I heard today that I want to reference that I think is really important to speak into the space. I was listening to Sounds True, Terry Simon's podcast. If you're not familiar with her work, it's fantastic, and lots of audiobooks and teachings and whatnot. And she interviewed a clinician named Deb Dana, who specializes in breaking down polyvagal theory. And curiosity is the part of the nervous system when we are in our common respond system, parasympathetic system. She actually names it as the ventricle part of the nervous system. So I spend a lot of time, remember our naps at alpha state? I take a lot of naps. I take a lot of walks. There's a lot of music in my life. There's a lot of things that I do to ensure that I can pendulate through the different parts of our nervous system. Because, you know, we have our fight and flight response, we have the freeze and collapse part, and they all have a purpose. There's all a purpose to them. Do we always want to be in that, you know, the parasympathetic nervous system? It wouldn't be realistic. And sometimes we have to have our fight or flight on. However, it's curiosity is coming from that place when we're really rested and nourished. And that's where but it's luck, it's gratitude, it's also a lot of focus. So that's where minding the gap comes from me, and being able to make, like when people ask, well, how are you able to do the things that you do and sit with the messy things? It's practices.
That's what you do. You go into spaces where people are ordinarily uncomfortable. Would you talk a little bit about, you know, let's talk about some of your past incarnation, and then we'll talk about the new iteration of Lori Guth. But and you're not leaving that arena altogether, but just tell us a little bit about that that place for you.
Well, for the last 10 years, I've worked in hospice, and I had the opportunity to work with patients, family, and staff, ensuring that the dying process could be as peaceful as it possibly can, of course, for the patient, but for everybody involved. And as we know, we've all have experienced death in a lot of different ways. And that's the possibility of peace or the possibility of ease. Is where I've spent a lot of the last 10 years. It was coming from, again, the curiosity about death through my former husband, Jay. His family was in the death industry, specifically as bombers. And we would be at Thanksgiving dinner, y'all, and his family was so comfortable talking about death and the messiness of it and the beauty of it and the weirdness of it and the grossness of it and all the things. And I'm like, that is so weird, because my family's like, it's all good. Mm-hmm. We don't talk about those things. Mm-hmm. Don't worry, we're Jewish.
Or anything.
And it always felt, as a kid, something about that felt off. Like it didn't feel quite, you know, kids know a lot. Kids are very, very smart. We don't always give little ones as much credit as they need. I'm like, you know, when my grandma, Ethel died, you know, no, and here, this is crazy, y'all. Secrets, you know, the secret in my family around her death was like, she lived with ovarian cancer for like 1 or 2 years, and she wore wigs, but it was the 70s. And as a kid, I just thought everyone wore wigs. It's not why she was wearing, that wasn't it. And her and my father didn't know. His brother didn't know. A week before she died, she was in the hospital, and Grandpa said, Mom's really sick. You need to get to the hospital. She's dying, blah, 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 blah. And nobody took me. I didn't get to say goodbye. It was a horrible death. At 7, 8, I knew it was bad.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't understand why. I really didn't understand it. So contrast that with Jay's family, who was like, you know, Jay would go with his father, Bill, to the funeral home and be in the basement, like you saw in 6 Feet Under, and his dad's lighting up a cigarette. Jay's sitting there watching his dad, you know, do his work. And that to me, and that felt way more normal. And I, again, not raised that way, but it was just something in my soul. It's the only way I can explain it. Nikki could tell us more about, like, you know, what that piece of it in my astrology, where that lands. But I just intuitively, like, talking about these things and naming these things was important to me. So that's really what I do in those places and spaces. Because I think it was honestly sadness and anger that brought me into the world of hospice, and thinking that we need to, and Jay's family was very much of the mindset, like, we need to be talking about these things and make it normal, not
Yeah.
so hidden.
Yeah. We have a tendency to, it's a social thing that we do in Western culture. We hide from the discomfort of things. And you in your life have had so many practices that I know of where you go into the discomfort and you face it head on. How has that served you in the role of supporting people in their last moments, and what is that like for you?
I believe at the core of it, I provide a very calm, co-regulated space where people can let go and die.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's hospitality. And it is ensuring that there is a peaceful enough death for that person. And our focus is always on the patient, but also ensure, and part of that is caring for the family. Caring for the families. And it takes time, it takes patience. It is not to be rushed. It's not a drive-through quick fix. And it can change in a minute. And so the way I try to teach when I'm in those places and spaces is making sure that I'm regulated, so that when I walk in, I don't create more chaos in the space. That when I walk in, my presence is felt like there's a grounding. And again, that comes from being, and our bodies are made to co-regulate with each other.
Talk a little bit about what you mean by we are embodied practitioners, so we know what that means. Talk a little bit about co-regulation and how how that process works, what you notice and observe.
When I am in my grounded, rooted state, which feels like warm, it feels nourishing, it feels like a blanket, it feels yummy, that I'm able to look out and I can see and observe what's happening in a space. And I start to feel into the room. Who really needs my attention? Who's the person that's really suffering the most? It could look very obvious like crying. It could look like withdrawal. It could look like chaos, crazy making. And all those things can happen all at once at the same time in that room with all kinds of people in there. So I'm drawn to, and it's like a magnetic pull, that whoever I'm pulled to the most, wherever I'm observing and seeing in the space, that's who I will go and sit with. So it might look like, especially if I've been working with someone a long time, I'll just sit next to them and ask permission to put my hand on their back. It might look like, it looks like to me, you might need X, Y, or Z. It looks like to me, do you want to come with me and take a walk outside? And then, so I'm one of those, offerings will be made. And then I can, and then I can start to feel people just want to really be seen and heard. And you can feel like somebody just start to like take a breath. And I also watch that as well. I'm watching for the breath in the chest and the belly. A lot of us have the tendency to breathe up here, but when someone starts to down regulate their system, if you're paying attention, you can see softening here, movement here, and movement here. And again, I'm just well trained to like zero in on certain things. Now with a patient, that can sometimes be harder to see. So sometimes, you have to be really still. If there's a patient that you can't really tell where they are, but there's some discomfort, you can feel something's not right. It might take 30, 60 or more seconds just to sit and really watch. Okay, Miss Sylvia, this was like 2016 going to 2017, I think, something like that. She was on our unit. I met her before she came on our unit. She lived at Creekside, which is part of Wexner Heritage Village where I used to work. And her kids wanted to make sure she had every service that we had to offer, which included mine, which is called Urban Zen Integrative Therapy. And I went and met the kids, Miss Sylvia, the whole schlemiel, the whole family, and did, some grounding exercises with the family, breath work, shared aromatherapy, did Reiki, which is, for those of you who don't know what Reiki is, it's a hands-on or it can be hands-off therapy that brings a balance to the mind, the body, and the spirit. Everyone loved it. The kids go back to New York. I make appointments with Miss Sylvia to see her next week. Long and short, she blows me off every week. Then she comes to live on our unit because she really couldn't stay in her apartment anymore. And every day I would come visit her. She still wanted nothing to do with me. The only thing she wanted was a little bit of lemon essential oil on a cotton pad, because y'all, she had a stack of books that she wanted to get through. Murder mysteries. I've got to get through these, and I really don't have time for you. Got it. New Year's rolls around. She starts going in somewhere in the actively dying process. And it's a good 10 days in. And the doctor said, Lori, will you please go in and do something with Miss Sylvia? We're trying to get her comfortable, but she's not quite there. And I said, Dr. Sherry, you know how much Miss Sylvia does not like Urban Zen. She's like, just figure it out. Just go. So I walk in. Hi, Miss Sylvia. It's Lori. I know you don't really love Urban Zen, but I'm here. I'm just going to sit over here in the chair. I know you like lemon oil. I think part of you can still smell it. And I put it down close to her, and I'm sitting in the room watching her breathing. And I can see she's getting close to the very end, but not quite there. And I thought, okay, I wonder what's going on. I don't really know. Who knows? And I decided, I look over and I'm like, I wonder if she finished her book. I wonder if she ever finished, it was I forget the name of the author, but M is for murder. It was it went through the alphabet, and it was the letter Z. So I grabbed that book and I start flipping through. I'm like, well, I'm going to read the last chapter. Maybe she wants to be read to. Maybe she wants to know the ending, because we know that at the end, people can still hear. They can still sense that we're in this space. I start reading to Miss Sylvia, and it's pretty good, not bad. And all of a sudden, I feel this sensation of cold air blasting over my face. And then I felt all the air go out of the room. And I closed the book and I was like, Miss Sylvia, I think you just died. What just happened? I was like, so I put a hand on my heart. I ground my feet. I'm like, okay. Just breathe. Everything, you're safe. It's okay. Breathe. And then I look at her throat, because sometimes you can see movement through here. Look at her chest. And I'm like, God, sorry. I'm looking. I can't. I'm like, I don't see a thing. And I back up again. I keep moving, and then I don't see. It's very still. Everything is still. I was like, she really is gone. I ring the buzzer. The doc comes in and pronounced her dead at 12:05 or whatever time it was. I don't know. So, I mean, honestly, from the time I walked onto the unit, into her room, read the book, it was probably 20 minutes. And the family was very pleased. And they loved the story that I read to Miss Sylvia, because that's exactly and that we honored her to the end.
It's the power of awareness that really deepens us into what's true. And that membrane between what is and what carries on beyond is palpable. It sounds like you experienced that, and I'm sure you've got lots of other experiences of that. It's such a gift that you're willing to that you have the skill and the depth of your own grounding to be able to do that on a regular basis and to be a part of the deathing process. It's such a sacred, um, such a sacred journey.
Mm. Thank you. And and at this point, I want to like give a shout out to all my teachers, Marcia Miller and Linda Oceans and Martha Markham and Gail Sky and Rodney Yee and Colin Yee. And, there's a slew of folks that have helped me get here.
Mhm.
Roshi Joan Halifax. I mean, really studying with some of the finest people in this work. So, and the willingness to be there. There's a willingness.
Yeah. So you're making a transition.
I am.
And you're transitioning away from hospice into, where are you going next? What's happening?
So good question. What is happening? So, as someone who's very practical, what do I love to do? Because, COVID has been really hard on all of us. It's been especially hard in healthcare, and it was getting more and more difficult to work. And the way that I was paid was through philanthropy, grant making, and donors, and all kinds of stuff. And I just saw the handwriting on the wall that this was just going to be more difficult. And I decided to start figuring out, what are my skills? What do I have to offer the world? What would be interesting? What would be fun? What could be sustainable for the next few years so that eventually I could go back to hospice if I wanted? And I have a long history in retail. I have a long history in the world of beauty, and started talking to my network because, as you know, Mitzi, I have a big network. And I started this process back in March or April, talking to people who are in the world of cannabis, because I also think that's an interesting place and space to be in. And so now I'm combining my expertise in retail and beauty with well-being. And again, I gave myself a lot of time and space to make this transition. I think that's also the piece of that's been I'm extremely grateful for, that I started thinking about this really probably beginning of this year, and just really seeing what was happening in the world, and seeing what was happening in my world, and knowing like a change is a coming. And I got a plan now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I got a plan now. So, it's really, I don't want to reinvent the wheel, kind of lazy, don't really want to learn anything new. Let's just use the resources that I have, and the talents and the gifts that I have, and see what happens. And, I've been given this gift, y'all, of like being able to combine all of this together, working right now. It's in a small way, but it's going to grow like bit by bit by bit, as things should, so that we can adjust. And I get to work with the Alta stores here in town, training them on a gorgeous, beautiful skincare line called Kanuka, which is CBD and Manuka honey combined together. And I get to bring in some of the pieces that I've been working on for the last 18, 19 years through the world of yoga and meditation and deep listening, and doing, training people on the product, but also giving them a little bit of the stuff that I've done for a long time. Because the world of retail, as we know, is very stressful. And to give people some skills to be able to deal with whatever happens that day, they're open. And so, again, just very lucky that I get to play with this. And also knowing we'll see, where it'll go next. I'm not completely sure. I'm just staying open.
So, when we spoke earlier, I was really fascinated by the process that you had been going through to get to this transitional point. And you spoke a lot about how you used a lot of the same things that you honestly use with that hospice care, but on your own and for yourself, and some other practices that you aren't necessarily teaching to people. So, can you speak more into the process that you took and the practices that you did that finally got you to the decision to transition back into where you are now?
Thank you for that question, Nikki, to refine it a little bit more. A lot of, this pandemic, choices are limited, right? But nature is such good medicine. So walks every day, no matter what the weather, 10, 20, 30 minutes, an hour, just walking, 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 getting the anxiety that was stuck in my system out. I mean, and music is a big thing. I do have, I work out. I don't have like my yoga practice is a restorative yoga practice. So a lot of lying around in, forward folds and back bends and that kind of thing. Whatever I could do so that my body could just really rest and really relax. And then from there, I have a trusted circle of friends that I can talk to and just, ask them to just bear witness to me. I needed help. And then a lot of journaling. And, and all of that combined together really helped me to come through and ask for what I needed. But it took, again, I'm very diligent and focused with my care, and I have the ability to do so the way that my life is set up. So I took advantage of all the extra time that I've had so that I knew, like, I think about seasons and I think about, winter season is a season of rest. So a lot of like this, I really rested into that and then came into spring and started going into action. And really then start to build things more in the summertime, as well as saying goodbye to some stuff. So is that helpful, Nikki? Did that make more clarity and more sense?
Yeah, it's just it was just fascinating to me when we were talking before how you use those same practices that you teach to other people, and um it's we didn't even talk about you following the seasons before. That's like so strongly following astrology and like um kind of the really easy ways to use nature and the sun and what's happening around us to our advantage. So I just really wanted to hear it again.
Right on, right on.
Especially the journaling. And I remember you said something about writing a story or writing a letter to somebody, someone, something.
Yes, I write a lot of angry letters, a lot. I did this past week. It's a wonderful practice that I have. That I get really ugly and really hang out with my shadow side and just let it rip. No one sees it, and whomever I'm angry with doesn't get that fury because I don't want that. I don't want to completely like knock someone out of their seat. I mean, I have done it for certain, and it doesn't. It's not great, and it's not good for me either. So part of the practice is that type of thing, and again, getting things out. It's like, it's getting poison out of something, and then okay, then Mitzi, Byron Katie's work comes up a lot, like, and I'm going to kind of mess it up because I think I'm combining it with a lot of things, but I always ask, well, what's underneath that? Well, what's underneath that? What's underneath that? Is that Byron Katie? Am I not remembering that correctly?
I think it's a lot of the practices. Specifically, the Byron Katie practice is it true? Is it really true? Is it absolutely true? Who would I be without that thought?
Okay.
And I like the what's under it because that comes from a place of curiosity, and if I stick in a place of truth, I can go down the truth like, yeah, yes, it's true, it's absolutely true, yes, 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 and I don't care. I'm not, yeah, I'm, you know. But what's under that is like, oh, well, there's the truth. And that's kind of speaks into what you were talking about with the nervous system, polyvagal system, when the kind of questions we ask ourselves is important because it exercises different parts of the brain and the nervous system, and we engage differently. Um, and getting into that anger and writing it out it's dispelling a spell that you cast on yourself when you get those words out.
I love that. Yeah, it's dispelling a spell. It is. And as you know, name it to claim it. Name it to claim it also comes up a lot in my work with people and myself. And I think, Nikki, to your point, yes, I think the best teachers I know, Rodney is an excellent teacher because and Marcia Miller, they sit on their cushion, they sit on their mat, they do the practices. You too, the work that you did with me this past summer, I want to speak into that. The embodiment of the practices and the questions combined with astrology, you're very well practiced, and that for me, I trust teachers like you in that sense to help guide me, and that's why I'm coming to you as a student. I need guidance, and I only want to be guided by people who are actually doing the work themselves, because I know I'm sure you two feel this way as well. I know like that much more than my students, maybe that much. And I tell that to my students, like, the things I'm teaching you, you know this. I'm just here to remind you. And then you could just, let me go and go on your way. So, and we used to talk about that a lot at the studio, like the greatest clients were the ones who got it and moved on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a blessing. It's a blessing when you impact somebody's life and they're like, wow, something really clicked, and then they go out and they share it, and like they're out there changing the world because of an experience that we had. We're not creating some like codependent, needy kind of practice with people. I love, my favorite clients are the ones that came once and then I never saw them again. And of course there's a background personality story that can run that says, well, I must have done something wrong. They never came back. And then I might see them 6 months, sometimes 2 years later. I might be at a party or something, and they said, oh my God, you saved my life. I never had that pain again, or, my perspective completely shifted. So that's the power of that awareness and co-regulation. We can't take that for granted.
No, I just got chills all the way up and down, my spine, you saying that. And that makes a healthy world. I mean, that's what a healthy world is to me.
Mm-hmm.
That is, it's so important as a teacher, that is always my hope. And what you said was, that's the other piece too, is that the ripple effect. And I tell students, like, I hope you take one thing and you can teach this to your kid. You can teach this to your mother. That was also the point in the hospice where we would try to teach some of the practices to the caregiver when we weren't around, that they could use this with their loved one or on themselves.
I think that's why the three of us vibe together so well. We're all educators. And I can talk at it from 2 points that I'm thinking of specifically, because I teach aesthetics, which Lori and I both have a background in aesthetics as well. And one of the things I always say to my students is, I'm not better at this than you are. I just have 5-6 years more experience than you. It's what we do in aesthetics isn't anything difficult. Everything's just like, oh, you just have to remember the order that it is. And because I'm so practiced at it, yeah, I can kind of do it better than you, but half the time I can show a student once or twice and they got it, and it's just a matter of them remembering and practicing and doing the repetition. And I think it's beautiful that it's the same thing, a similar process with the astrology that we teach as well, because you are a perfect example of this. So many people are just their charts, whether or not they even know it. And Lori, you're like, Mitzi has said this before, but you knew some witchy stuff, you knew some stuff about your astrology, but every time you speak and I look at your chart at the same time, like, you are just completely living your chart in one of the most beautiful ways.
I was just,
So
y'all gonna make me cry again. Damn it. Thank you. Thanks, Nikki. Yeah, and I think about our, that the offering I did with you both in August. And I was every time I knew, I knew where my sun was, the moon, and my ascendant. But that was pretty much it. And I would be like, oh my God, what? I can't believe this is all vibing the way that it's vibing. I think what I really enjoyed so much about teaching and being in the space, in the Zoom room space with both of you, is there was a lot of joy, but there was safety and containment to really explore. And I just loved, Mitzi, how you talk about the pucker zone. And I think about that all the time, especially in my north and south node. Is it okay to go there?
Yeah, that's actually, it's a perfect transition because that's where we will go now.
Okay, so mine is Virgo. So when I'm in the zone, detail oriented, for example, but then when I'm in the pucker zone, which I catch myself doing, I'm super critical, and I go, oh, I'm in the pucker zone, and I laugh, and that actually helps break the spell of my critical thinking and my judgment, because and my north node is in Pisces and spirituality and expansiveness, and that's much more both have a place, but I always, oh yeah, I'm really, I need to see this from a bigger picture. I can't get puckered up. And being critical is going to shrink me into a little lump if I'm not careful. So pucker zone is just been like a chef's kiss. It's funny, and I think that's what I think that's the beauty of talking to you right now, in as Mitzi and Nikki. There's a sense of playfulness and creativity, and we're talking about things that we're talking about death, for God's sakes. That's pretty serious, but there's still a lightness, and I'm wearing a light up tiara. Let's give a shout out to Tina's tiaras.
Yes, Tina, I
Everybody.
love Tina.
Yeah,
death is part of the creative process, and we ignore it. Well, it's we begin in the first house, we exist, and then we no longer exist in physical form. We exist in spirit form, and that's the 12th house. We get around the clock, and we spin our wheels, and we're in time, and we kind of skip over, in the house system. The 11th house is about progressing humanity, and the 12th house is about deep spirituality and surrendering to ego and ending processes and death itself. And we tend to, in our busyness, in our creativity, in our desire for relief, we tend to skip over those two little segments of the clock. So, we're rocking around the clock, 8, 9, 10, 1. Let me start again. And that's, and that's kind of what I was speaking into at the beginning of our conversation, is that's where the gap is in the 11 and the 12 and the 1, when we transition from we've ended something and we've begun something. And that's what I think Will was speaking into, that we observe from you, is that you live in that north node in such a healthy, comfortable, embodied way. It's who you are. It's what you do. Your north node is Pisces. So you mentioned, for those of you who might be new to astrology, you mentioned your south node in Virgo. So obviously that's going to make your north node in Pisces. And that is that area of deep spirituality and letting go of ego and surrendering to spirit altogether.
And on top of that, your chart is just built for what you do. That Piscean North Node is in your 3rd house, where you're connecting to your immediate environment. Your moon's in your 11th house, where you're being more social, and it's opposing your sun in the 5th house, where you're trying to have more fun as a Taurus. And the point that you brought up, the word that you brought up for joy, like I can just see that in so many places. Like that north node, south node being in the third and ninth houses really signify a lot of joy and a lot of large positive emotions. They're generally seen as positive houses. Um, and then your Mars and Venus and Gemini, of course, are always going to be looking for joy. And that also relates back to the healthy way that you were managing your anger through journaling and through writing angry letters. Because, like, that Mars and Gemini, it's an air sign and it's Mars. So it's going to be pretty strong. But that journaling is a Gemini way to do that in a healthy way. Like, I literally, like, everything you said, I can point to something in your chart. It's ridiculous how well you're living it.
And this is like, I have to tell you, Nikki, this brings me like, I mean, that's what's like, this is where you're such great teachers, you know, and why it's so helpful. Because I think I'm not crazy. I think so many, I think the human conditions to feel like I'm crazy, I don't belong, I'm an outsider. We all feel it.
Mhm.
We all feel it. But having this information that you're giving me about my chart, and I love that it's not like being predictive, you know, you're just giving me and others that you work with uh, the language and the tools of how to leverage our gifts and how to deal with our mishigas, our messiness. Now, as we all know, like again, like I hadn't really like ticked out my how many fixed signs I have and how many mutable things I have and cardinals, and you all can explain that stuff to people because I think it's interesting. But I have a balance of fixed and mutable, and I do swing back and forth between those two things. Now it's uncomfortable, but I've learned how to make it a little bit more playful because I thought maybe it's because the joy that's all over that's sprinkled through my chart. Like, well, if I'm going to make this discomfort better, at least like make it a little bit more fun or something, or at least have a laugh about it when you're done crying your freaking eyes out, you know. And understanding, I think that's why I was drawn to the practice of yoga and meditation and really and Buddhism. They understand that nothing is permanent, and probably the same thing with death and that work. Nothing is permanent. I just really have to sit down at the table and really get a feel for it.
And that's just, I mean, that's a testament to your earthiness. You want to feel it. It's got to be a physical experience, not just an idea or an activity.
Nope. Nope. Let me get down and dirty with that. I don't really want to read about it in a book or watch a movie about it. Mm-hmm. I'm and this is my current beau, he loves horror movies. I can't deal with it. I don't like them whatsoever. And I know a lot of people that love horror, but they're really afraid of death. They're really afraid of being in those hospice rooms. I'm like, okay, now y'all know that like y'all's going to die and everyone you know is going to die. You're going to be in these rooms sometimes. You know that, right? You might as well get practiced being okay enough or with it now. I guess I'm just a preparer. You know, let's get really prepared. I don't want to watch horror movies, but I can sit with people in the most uncomfortable situations. And my nervous system, and I wonder sometimes, and I would love to hear if you want to like jam on this for a moment, but like people's fascination with that, is it for some people like they want to touch into that world? I don't really understand it. I don't need to know if I need to.
Horror specifically is just fun more than anything else. Once you can get past, it's kind of like a marathon where, or I don't know, I've never run a marathon, so maybe it's nothing like a marathon, but it's training for a marathon, you have that uphill, I have to get past this being uncomfortable to the point where, okay, I can do this repeatedly now, and it might still be uncomfortable, but um I can handle it. I was in the same boat as you when I was younger and a teenager. Like I was curious about, well, you're not really curious about it, but I was curious about horror, and I was like, I want to kind of get into it, but like it scares the crap out of me, especially like the spiritual ones that are all like demons and blah, blah, and that still will get under my skin every now and again. But the gore aspect is something that you can like watch over and over and kind of learn this is really fake. And um it's just a way to have fun, which it's a really weird way to have fun, obviously, but it's not so weird that it's underground anymore. There's plenty of people who can connect to that. And I think it does connect to the way that our specific American society is really disconnected from death as well. Like, I think it's perfect that you're bringing up your discomfort with horror while you're so comfortable with death, because so many other cultures, so many other non-industrialized cultures are very close with death. They're very close with taking care of the body and being with the body and being with people as they're dying, where in our industrialized society it's like, oh, you're going to go sit over there and you're going to go over there and even if it's not that, it is like that with COVID right now. But it's like once they have passed, the body just goes to the funeral home and you don't have any say. Or I mean, you can, obviously you have your rights to, but once they're in the funeral home, you don't know what's going on and you don't see anything until the wake or the funeral. And so we've disconnected from that process of processing somebody's death. And it's really fitting in my mind that we're also, a lot of people are also really obsessed with horror because they have that disconnect from death too. So I don't know if that
Mhm.
clarifies it for you at all. That's kind of where I can see that connecting in.
I think it's an ever evolving conversation, but I think you hit the nail on the head. I think there's this curiosity about death, and going through the door of horror is a little fun because it's fake, and maybe, in some way prepare somebody on some level. I
It
don't know.
also it also generates chemistry. We in Western society are pretty addictive, as and so when we get frightened, adrenaline pumps, and the chemistry of joy and the chemistry of fear are practically identical, and it's the rational mind that interprets it. And in fact, some people get a lot of great joy out of fear. So it's feeding a chemical reaction in the system. And there, on the other side of that, is a sense of relief. You know, the emotions are heightened. You're up, you're up, you're up, you're up, you're up. And then we experience uh, Mel Robbins and the five, that 90 seconds for chemistry to work its way through the body. And I think that's for people who, and if you're watching this and you are a horror fan, share with us what you get out of it. I don't understand it. But no
Yeah,
judgment. But there's
yeah.
there's there's a there's a there's a there's a rise and there's a fall, and it's in that fall and that relief when it's over, when you're able to say, well, that wasn't real. And maybe it is a form of training. When you are faced with something that is an actual threat and an actual challenge, you're going to be less reactive because you're used to interpreting those chemicals in a healthy way. We're not psychoanalysts, and we're
It's fascinating though.
but it's an experiential thing. I know, maybe talk to your boy about it and see what he has to say. See, like, get back to us later. Yeah.
I will. I will get back to you.
Well, speaking of the letting chemicals dissipate and that process of unwinding and allowing anxiety to dissipate, that is your specialty. And I'm wondering if maybe you want to share a little practice with us that the viewers can participate in.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to keep it really simple. There'll be a little combination of things that go really well together. It'll be about a minute. And I just want to let viewers know, like, if you're new to this, play with it. You know, maybe it's just 10 seconds, maybe it's 20, maybe it's 5. There's, you know, everyone's nervous system is arranged, organized differently. And honestly, just, you know, the most important thing is to really trust your system. That's the most important thing in all of this. And as you get more comfortable, and you might be wondering, well, how do I know if this is something that is annoying me? It could be that you start thinking about other things or wishing it was over. It could also be even a biological reaction. The throat gets dry, the heart starts to race. Those are signs that maybe this isn't for me today. So honor your intuition. Sound good?
Thanks for that permission.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, I think being in choice is very important at all times. And when it comes especially to our body. So let's start with sitting at the very edge of our seat. Feet hip width apart, hands on top of your thighs. And we're going to start just moving side to side. And as you're moving side to side, it's like you're rocking a baby. And you're welcome to keep your eyes closed. You're welcome to keep your eyes open. My invitation to you is to bring your attention to the tip of the nose as the tongue rests behind the lower teeth. And then start slowing down the movement. Might still move a tiny bit, and that's okay. And pay attention to the breath. Feel the inhale. Feel the exhale. The next time you exhale, I invite you to breathe through pursed lips, like you're blowing out your birthday candles. Inhaling through the nose and exhaling. 2 more times. And then come back to breathing in and out through the nose. And then bring your hands to your heart, one on top of the other. Feeling yourself settle even more. This is inspired by a little bit of Ramza Menakem's work that I've studied and Robin's. So I want to cite those resources. And then saying to yourself, I am safe, I'm okay, I am loved. I am safe, I'm okay, I am loved. And continue saying that to yourself until you feel settled. Say it 2 more times to ourselves. And letting that go, you can bring your hands down to your thighs. If your eyes are closed, slowly open the eyes. And then get oriented for all of us. So look around your room, looking to your right and behind you, to your left and behind you, coming back. Just noticing your space.
Thank you. Oh, beautiful.
Mm. Thank you for sharing your heart with us and your magic and your wonderful stories. And best of luck to you on this new reinvention process and going to merging your worlds. And how can we find you if we want to get more of your pragmatic healing?
Oh, you guys.
So, in part of the reinvention is that you are in the process of building out all of
Yeah.
the context stuff and the
Right now it's just LinkedIn.
Okay.
It's LinkedIn. Lori E. Guth. You'll find me there, and I'm just again like figuring stuff out one step at a time. So I don't really have a lot of web presence at this time.
You don't have to. Like
Yeah, I'm good.
You have a powerful third house. You have your network.
I do. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. It's the network. People, honestly, like I think about that and go, I am so lucky, because people now, after 18 years of this magic, people are coming so to me, and there's referrals that are coming in through other people. So
Mhm.
I kind of like it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. It's a beautiful
I love
thing.
it.
Yeah.
I don't want to be on social media.
Yeah.
It's
You don't
weird.
have to.
I don't want to.
It's all
I'm
right.
good. You guys do it. You ladies do it.
Bless you for living your values, and bless you for the work that you do.
Right back at you both. I wish you, oh man, I think of our time together this summer and really how much it's helped me get to where I am. So I need to name Peter Belton Stone in my the teachers of reference.
Well, thank you for that celebration and that honoring and that reverence.
Especially considering how irreverent we can be sometimes.
Well, it's
good. We need it.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, we're too serious.
Well, I mean, we talk about some heavy things, but there's a lightness to it, and it can be fun. And irreverence serves a purpose. I'm seeing some more opportunity for some juicy conversation as you evolve and reinvent yourself. So stay tuned. Love you so much.
Love you, Lori. Thank you.
My pleasure. I will see y'all soon.
What a deep dive that was with Lori. Always so appreciative to see her and experience her deep and healing energy.
What a gift. What a wonderful reminder that the creative process has so many colors to it, so many tones, and it's possible to stay in a state of awareness and curiosity as we're creating. So if you want more information about our programming and how embodied astrology can support you with your creative process and stay out of the buffer zone, find us at activateyouраxis.thinkific.com. And you can also download an Axis affirmation course. It's only $3.69, and we'll take you through finding out your big three and your nodes and how you can use that information to inform your mission and stay out of the puffer zone and have growth without striving.
And if you're feeling a little bit more irreverent or feeling like getting irreverent after all of that deep dive, you can find us at Peter Belton Stone on Instagram and TikTok.
Yes, of course.
I forgot about TikTok.
TikTok is the place where we engage our creativity. We're not talking astrology. We're just putting this silly
Talk
crap.
astrology.
We do talk astrology, but we're stupid about it. I mean, we're downright stupid in all the good ways. So, thank you so much for joining us. We love you dearly. Keep it light.